welcome back to another episode of the Arts Block Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Curry III, and today we got an artist, a rapper, a saxophonist, ladies and gentlemen. This is probably I think this is my first instrumental artist on the podcast, which is great. We got my guy, Jonah Spiva.
Yes, sir.
Spiva,
What's going
yes!
on?
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for him. Give it up, bro, ladies and gentlemen. How are you today, first and foremost?
Oh man, I'm doing great. I'm really excited. I'm excited for the podcast. This is gonna be great.
Excited too. I'm glad that you're excited. You being excited makes me excited, honestly. So let's just jump straight into it. I got a question. Did you start off first rapping and making and writing music, or did you like fall in love with sax first?
That's a great idea, and I gotta say neither. I started off on the piano, yeah. So I started off playing piano when I was young, just trying to figure stuff out. Because the piano is really a visual instrument. It's color coded, people like to say, because you have the white keys and the black keys. And it's kind of easier to learn than the rest of them. So I started off there. And then I moved my way onto saxophone in about the 8th grade. And that's when I started with jazz. And I skipped a step. In the 6th grade, I started making beats. So I used to make beats for my friends and for people that I met on the internet too. I used to sell them sometimes, as a side hustle. And my life has just kind of been filled with music.
Okay. So what transitioned you from piano to producing? That makes sense, right? But
Right.
from producing to saxophone, what was that transition? What was that period of time for you?
So like they weren't really related. So really when I got into saxophone, I was trying to get into the school jazz band. And I go to a pretty small school, so there are not a lot of options, right?
Right.
But unfortunately, they already had a piano player, actually 2 piano players in the band, but they needed a saxophone player. So I auditioned on piano, and then the teacher was like, you want to pick up sax? And I was like, why not? And I actually ended up liking it so much that it became my kind of primary instrument.
Right. You're kind of known on Instagram as the sax man. That's what you call yourself. That's what
Right.
you brand yourself as. So where did rapping come into play? Right. You played piano. You produced your own beats. You went and played saxophone. Not so many people go from playing saxophone to rapping, or playing saxophone to doing anything else besides playing saxophone. So
Right.
what's this? What's this rapping?
Yeah, I got you. I mean, like, I found rap through pop culture, right? I started off, when I was in like 5th grade or so, when Fetty Wap was popular, all them people, just kind of the mainstream stuff,
Yes.
But then when I started producing, I kind of, got to look more at kind of the culture, and it's not really, I wouldn't say it's the same as the traditional kind of culture that you would see in person, because I was doing most of my beat making online and giving people beats online. So I kind of like saw the internet culture of making beats and giving them to rappers, and I thought it was really cool. So for a while I had been kind of rapping on my own beats, trying to emulate the rappers that I was giving my beats to. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then later on, I stumbled upon like 90s hip hop, uh, like the classic Tupac, Biggie, and I really got into them and their whole stories and their careers and stuff. And I was really inspired, especially by Biggie, because he kind of, they say it in this documentary that they have about him. He raps like a jazz drummer plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that makes sense, because jazz drummers when they're soloing, they go like, they would do an idea like do da da ba da ba da ba 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 da
It's a
ba.
very flowy,
Right,
very
right. You can
flowy.
kind of, yeah, you can hear that rhythmic stuff in it, and it just translated over to Biggie's rapping, and I just thought that was insanely cool. So I tried to learn from him and all the greats, um, when I was making this album.
Right. Okay. So this is a it's a little vulnerability moment right here, right? Um, I love making podcast episodes. It makes me happy. If I'm having a bad day, but I have an interview, I automatically know that I'm going to have a better day after that interview, right? No matter what time of day it is, no matter what
Mhm.
time of day the interview is, right? The interview could be at 3 o'clock in the morning. I know everything after 3 o'clock in the morning is going to be amazing.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a fear to put out episodes just because it's a piece of me leaving every time I put out an episode, right? So
Yeah.
it's always a small piece of me leaving. But with you and with music, there's a bigger piece of you leaving. There's always like a big chunk of you that's leaving, right? Because you put yourself in the music. Sometimes is with music is sometimes it's hard to separate the art from the artist when the artist puts so much of them inside their music,
Right.
right? Has
Mhm.
there ever been a time where it was kind of like challenging for you to like create your own music or like want to put out your own music?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for sure that's one of my biggest issues, putting myself out there in that vulnerable position, I want to make lyrics that are kind of meaningful. And when you do that, when you make really meaningful lyrics, then you're reaching deeper
Mhm.
into yourself, and getting more into that fear of embarrassing yourself or getting ridiculed. And I find that to be true every single time I put something out,
Mhm.
or even every single time I record or make something or produce something. I find myself thinking about what other people would think.
Right.
And especially when with the rapping thing, you know, I feel like rap is really stigmatized and not given as much respect, as an art form,
Mhm.
because it's a new black art, and like every new black genre, of music, or any new black art form, I feel like has been stigmatized, no
Right.
matter when, like, uh, that I feel like people don't treat it with the same respect as a lot of other genres, that are more established and older. So that was especially hard putting out, rap.
Right. And I seen on your Instagram that you are a real advocate. Like, and I use real like very directly, like a real advocate of Black lives, of Black music, of Black culture. Right.
Sure.
You support us of Black. Yes, you support us. I saw your story of like of all the statistics that you were posting and how you were kind of using your platform to empower. Right. So
Mhm.
um, speak on that since we already kind of touched on it. Just a dab. Just speak on what you how you feel about that.
I mean, I'm a mixed person, so I consider myself a black man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mother is white. Was from the Soviet Union, actually. So she escaped from there, as a Jewish person.
Wow.
And my father is a black man. So is my grandfather, and my family on that side. So my family has, both cultures have a history of being oppressed. And I feel like I've been given this position of privilege to talk on that. I grew up in America, which is saying something, uh, like there are benefits to growing up in America. There are downsides, of course, being black in America, but there are also benefits, to being American. And I feel like, I've been given that platform to speak up, and I should. It's my duty.
Right. It's your job.
Right.
As a black man, it's our job to do that, right? And
Exactly. Yeah.
and intertwining, right, platforms. I try to use my platform in the most impactful way I can, even though like everything I do is catered to creatives and artists and people on that side. People who aren't that can still listen and still gain and still learn, still absorb from these stories, these young stories, these older stories, right?
Right.
Um, in what ways have you used music or are using music to kind of push the the envelope on the culture, more specifically black culture?
Right. I think really black culture is kind of my inspiration for all of my music. I do listen to some white music, right? I'm very inspired by Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and what they did in the 90s.
Love Kurt.
Um, but at the same time, my roots are kind of like, Shaka Khan,
Mm,
uh, and a lot of people from Motown. I do especially love the Jackson Five and Michael Jackson himself.
mm,
Quincy Jones, less known, but
vision.
he is well known. He is a producer, Michael Jackson's producer. He was also a great jazz producer and
Right.
composer. Is one of my main inspirations for producing. And I could go on and on. Of course, I've already mentioned Biggie and Tupac. P. Diddy, of course,
Yeah.
and Mace are two special inspirations for me. They inspired kind of the way I use my voice when I'm rapping. So it's really I am making black art. I would categorize it as black art, and it's derived from black art. And what I try to do to push the envelope is mix it all together, mix the rap, mix the jazz. Obviously, I haven't even gotten into my jazz
Right.
idols, but uh, I mean, if for anybody watching, I would highly suggest going and listening to John Coltrane and his
Mhm.
Ballads album, Ballads by John Coltrane. So I just draw inspiration from, all black music, black art, and I'm trying to combine it all into one thing.
Mhm. Okay, question.
Hmm.
You named a lot of artists, right? You just
Right.
named a lot of black artists. Michael Jackson. You named the whole map. Motown. You named Tupac, Biggie, Mace, Diddy. Um, I want to know who's your favorite older generation artist. Like mine of my favorite older generation artist is between two people. It's between Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson.
Oh yeah.
They are fighting for the 1 and 2 spot currently in my heart.
Hmm.
Who was it? Who was it for you? You just named some interesting names, and I'm
Right.
really curious.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are so many.
Mhm.
I think really Michael Jackson was a main one, and Quincy Jones, his producer.
Mhm.
Kind of the stuff they did in the '80s, um, from Thriller and Bad. Those really inspired me. And then Shaka Khan. She worked with this saxophone player, Michael Brecker.
Mhm.
He's not black, but he worked with Shaka Khan, and their stuff together is just so good. And I try to emulate the the like skill that they have and the put togetherness. Like everything that they put out is just completely put together. It's spotless, it's clean. You can't hear anything that makes you kind of tense or like feel like it's not going to be a good song. Like every element of
Right.
each song that those artists make is good.
Mhm.
So I try my best to emulate their music
Mhm.
the best. So Shaka Khan, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, I would say.
Okay. And let's talk about like how you really did that in your own music, right? So um the you put out two singles before the release of your
Right.
album. You put out Crowd in Your Head and Evolution.
Hmm.
So we talked about the how hard it is to put out the music, right?
Right.
But now that the music is already out, how hard is it? Well, not how hard is it. What is the thought process of you as an artist when you put the music out and you want people to like receive it how you want them to receive it?
Right. Yeah. So I guess a lot of the uh kind of what I want people to hear um is I want them to kind of like respect uh people from the past more, you know, the
Mhm.
people that have laid the groundwork. And I want to you know, bring maybe music that they haven't heard before into a digestible context where they're like, you know, oh shoot, this jazz might sound good. I've never liked jazz
Right.
before, but this jazz might sound good, you know, because I feel like people a lot of the time don't draw from history enough,
Hmm.
um, from like the artists of the past. So I feel like I really want to bring out the elements from the past, put it in a modern context, make it digestible for the average listener, and have them like it.
Right. You know what's like crazy to me though? I when I first listened to the album, right, and I listened all the way through the first time I listened all the way through, it was giving me like really like Tyler the Creator vibes. Like I was listening and I was like, man, like I feel like this. I feel like Tyler can hop on every one of these songs with this guy. What
Yeah.
is this? Did you produce that? Did you produce the album like by yourself?
Yeah, produced it, I mixed it, I mastered it. It's a self-made album. So
All the way
yeah, it was
so.
lots of fun to do.
Um, I'm gonna get into the release of the album, right? More
Hmm.
specifically, the release party. Your release party seems so lit. Like you like for like no, I'm being serious. For a teenager,
Yeah,
like your release party seemed really. The next time you release something, can I come to the release party?
for sure. We're doing more concerts this summer. I'll slide you the Addy for sure.
Thank, but thank I appreciate it. Your release parties are like top tier star level release parties. So
Thank you.
and your promotional strategy for that album, right? For Evolution, the album, it's crazy because you were doing like an old school kind of way of promoting the album. You were posting fucking posters around the city. I was like, who's where when does he have time and where why? Like why can't he just keep posting on his Instagram?
Right.
But
Yeah.
thinking about it though, like getting your face on the street, people keep seeing it, people wondering like what is this, right?
Right.
Where did you learn that? Because you weren't because that's not something you're just born with. You have to learn that. You have to pick that up from
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot from watching those documentaries about like, people in the 90s and the 80s, like how they promoted their music. I think it draws in more of a real crowd, a genuine crowd that actually likes the music. Because if you if you're like promoting stuff online, a lot of the time you'll get these kind of spammy accounts that like they may want to, they may like your content, but they may also just want to follow you so that you follow them back, and then you unfollow them later or they unfollow you later. So it's like I think that if you start promoting, like putting posters up, for example, people will
Mhm.
see the poster, and if they really want to hear it, then they'll click it.
Right.
But if it's just in somebody's Instagram feed, then they're forced to hear it, right? Because the
Mhm.
soundbite is already there, but the
Yeah.
soundbite's not on the poster, right?
Right.
Um, and then the live performances, you get to know the people better.
Mhm.
You see their face, you talk to them. There's a crowd in front of you, so they actually get to know you better, and I think that builds kind of more of a real audience than
Because
if
you
they were promoted
are
online.
yes, that's a great point. Because you are in a band
Hmm.
where and I seen something where you were rapping and playing saxophone
Right.
One, I don't know how you can multitask like that. I will get distracted doing one or the other. I can barely podcast without just fidgeting or messing with something. So I don't know how you rap and saxophone, but that's another story for another day. Um, but performing with a band, performing live, right? That's a different type of feeling. Performing in front of people, that's a different type of feeling, right?
Right.
You can perform some songs in front of your mom, and that's cool. But performing in
Right.
front of like a group of strangers that you probably had never met before, that really just loves the music, is that is that scary for you?
I mean, yeah, it was the first few times.
Mhm.
Um, but just like anything, you get used to the motions and you just go through the motions each time, and it gets less scary each time, I feel
Mhm.
like. Um, and yeah, I think yeah, performing live each time has become more natural to me.
Mhm. Um, when you say, what do you mean by natural?
I mean, like, it I get less nervous. I'm not as nervous before a concert like now. I'm gonna do a concert on August 6th. I'll probably live stream it on my Instagram.
Dope.
Um, and like that day, I'm guessing I will not be even a quarter
Mhm.
of the way as nervous as I was for with my first performance in front of my friends on June
Mhm.
6th.
Right. Wait, your first ever performance was on June 6th of this year?
In front of like a mostly crowd of my own friends. Like
Mhm.
I've performed recitals before. I performed, concerts
Well, like,
before.
yeah, but like a real like a real thing with like people. Was it like all of your original music?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the first time I've performed my own music, and then the first time that I've performed in front of a crowd that consisted of only my friends
Mhm.
and like not parents and no teachers and stuff. It was just
Right.
my friends.
So how many times have you performed since then? Like in that same kind of aspect.
I think we have done 5 concerts so far. So yeah, we did two in June, two in July. Wait, no, three in July. Um, and we're actually gonna do one more in July. And then one in August so far.
Okay, so you're already getting the sense of live showing, performing. Um, this is crazy because this is a great segue, Eric. Eric, when you're editing this, just know that this was an amazing segue that you just did. Because let's go straight to the live performing aspect of being an artist, right? Because I not actually did have this written down or somewhere that I did want to go. Because as a new artist, all right, the pandemic kind of troubled a lot of artists.
Hmm.
Let me explain. A lot of artists' songs popped off from TikTok, from social media, whatever. That's cool, right? But now you don't really know who your audience is. So you don't know where to perform. You don't know what venues to go to. You don't know where you're supposed to be in the lineup of festivals. You don't know how to perform because you didn't go through that training because nobody expected your song to blow up during a pandemic. You, sir, get the luxury of having friends to perform in front of. You can open for people now because the world is opening back up. You have an opportunity to open for different acts now. Um, what what would you say your audience is performing wise, right? Like, are they more rage? Are they more calm? Are they more let's put in a mosh pit, right? Because not everybody's audience matches their music, but
Right.
sometimes what is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I try to make music that people can dance to. So a
Mhm.
lot of the time, people are just kind of, dancing, doing their own thing in the crowd. I do some call and response stuff. So there's this one song called "Crowd in Your Head" that I got. Um, and I do like this call and response where the audience says crowd in your head,
Mhm.
and then I say one of my lines, and it just kind of gets them engaged and stuff, and they start dancing or whatnot.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of like it's not like a mosh pit. I mean, there was one kind of. I guess I wouldn't really describe it as a mosh pit, but it's like, people are dancing, they're jumping and kind of having fun.
You know, I feel like I feel like the moment that an artist wins is when they perform and the crowd is singing the song for them.
Yeah.
Like the song comes, like a note of the song comes on. The first note, the crowd's like, oh my
Yeah.
god. And you can just be like, sing. And they sing the whole entire song for you. You don't even have to say a word. I feel like at that moment, an artist wins, right?
Hmm.
What is the moment in time that Jonah Spiva will look and be like, man, I've won? In what point of your career will you say that?
Yeah, I think my goal is to become my own favorite artist.
Mm,
So I want to make the music that is my favorite music. So I mean, I do love the audience, and I do, you know, want to make music that'll make them happy. But really, the turning point for me will be when I love my music more than I love anybody else's music. And I love my music right now, but I love a few other people's music better, you know.
right. What do you where when do you think that you will get to that point of you loving your music more than anybody else's music? And when you say love your music, are you saying like you can listen to your music all day, every day, and not listen to nobody else's music? That's two
I
questions for you.
I think so. I think I don't know when it's gonna happen. I hope, sometime when I'm in my 20s,
Mm.
I feel like I want it to be sometime soon enough, but after I've developed a little more.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think what it really means is, um, being able to listen to it all day, not getting tired of it, and just liking the sound of it more than I like the sound of any other music.
All right, we are back. Um, Man, I want to thank you first and foremost for taking the time out to come on the podcast. It's been an honor. This has been a great episode. I love it here. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you live. I can't wait to get that call and response. I can't wait to get that quote unquote mosh pit. Um, Next release, I'm coming to the release party for sure. But like every other artist that comes on the Arts Block podcast, I have to get your dead or alive. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's watching the Arts Block podcast. Hello. I am your host, your beautiful, wonderful, melanated host, Eric Curry III. And Dead or Alive is a segment on the podcast where the artist on the podcast gets to choose some other artist that they would like to work with that is dead or alive. Now, you can choose one artist, you can choose 100 artists. Please don't choose 100 artists because I still have to edit this podcast. But yeah, it's on you, dead or alive.
For sure. Anybody dead or alive. All right. So
Anybody dead or alive.
for sure. I think I would first want to work with Michael Brecker.
Mm.
Tenor saxophone beast, amazing. I would recommend you go search up on YouTube Michael Brecker, some skunk funk live in Barcelona. It's one of my favorite recordings ever. He's awesome. So Michael Brecker, number one. Number two, I'd say I'd want to work with um, kind of an unknown artist. His name is Bobby Enriquez. He's a piano player. He goes crazy on the keys. He like does everything from like he literally, karate chops and punches the keys. He goes that far. So he's nicknamed the Wild Man.
Mm-hmm.
He's awesome. He's got some great stuff. Uh, Next, I would work with Mace, Biggie, Sean Combs, aka P Diddy,
Yes.
and Tupac. So
Mm-hmm.
those are some rappers slash producers. Love them. 90s icons. Two of them dead. Two of them alive.
Yeah.
Wish all of them were alive though.
Yeah.
I guess then Shaka Khan,
Mm-hmm.
I would work with, and Avril Lavigne.
Adam Levine. Adam Levine.
Avril. So the
Avril.
early
Who's Avril?
2000s. Yeah, she is an early 2000s icon. She did like punk rock music.
Mm.
I think she's Canadian, but I love her hits. They're awesome. So I would totally work with her.
I thought you said Adam, but Avril me for a bigger curveball. All right, ladies and gentlemen. The podcast host has some homework to do. Thank you, Jonah, for giving me some homework.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Eric. This has been amazing. It's an honor
Man,
to be on the podcast.
thank you, man. But before you get off, I'm going to put you in a scenario. You are in this big brother seat. This is you at the point where you love your own music, right? You're at that point of your career right now. And there's somebody that's in your same place right now that's struggling. They can't find their own sound. They don't know what to do. They might have been having the same struggles that you were having when you were first starting out, right? What is some advice that you will give that younger artist right now?
Yeah, I think I would say don't be afraid of me, right? So don't be afraid of my judgment. Since I'm the big brother figure, right? I don't want my past self to be afraid of what my future self will think of me. And that's kind of, um, something I struggle with right now, right? I don't want me in 10 years to look back on me right now and be like, oh man, your music sucked.
Right.
I just want to be able to freely make music. So that's my biggest fear. My biggest judge is my future self, and I want my future self to say, nah, I'm not your biggest judge. Do what you want. Don't be afraid of me.
Right. Man, that's deep. I hope y'all took that one with a grain of salt. Thank you so much, Jonah, for coming on to the Arts Block podcast. It's been an honor to have you here. And thank everybody that's watching the Arts Block podcast for watching the Arts Block podcast, man. I have been your host, Eric Curry III. All the Jonah's stuff will be linked in the description of every description. He's dope. Please check him out. Please check out his album. But you can follow me on Instagram at Eric Curry III. You can follow the podcast at Arts Block Podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, make sure you turn on post notifications so you can be notified every time we post a podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you give me a 5-star and a review. If you're listening anywhere else, shout out to you. Remember that artists never die. Is there anything you want to say before we get off the podcast?
Absolutely. Thank you so much to everybody watching, listening, and thank you, Eric. Thank you so much.
Man, no problem, man. And I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Peace.